Hey guys, how's it going? My name is Evan, and I hope you all are doing well today. So I'm gonna actually show you guys how I tie what's called a squirmy worm. In this case, it's gonna be a brown squirmy worm, so it might be a little bit different from what you normally see. Generally, you'll see like a blood red color or even a purplish color for people that are tying squirmy worms. But I've had good luck with this, especially in like tailwaters, in areas where, like, say for instance, bait is not allowed, but you can use flies, without a barb or something like that. And the fish are generally not used to seeing tons and tons of worms like this, and when they do, they get pretty excited. So I'm going to show you guys here. So this is a size 12 hook, curved shank hook. Okay, you can get these all over the place. And this is a 3mm bead. Now this is going to be a black 3mm bead. I'm going to go ahead and use some brown thread for this. Okay, so brown thread. We're going to start off first. We're going to lay two down. So we'll start off right here at the head, and we're going to come back here all the way to the back. Now, what I think you'll like about this particular squirmy, so we'll go ahead and go to the front now, is the fact that it's pretty durable compared to a lot of the squirmy worms that are out there. There's another method of tying this squirmy worm, and that's using these sort of dental bands, I believe, that they're using for like for braces, for keeping your braces tight. I think that's what I don't know. That's what they use them for, but it's a pretty smart way to tie it for sure. But this is sort of a more fixed version of what I'm going to be doing. Now, there are these that you can get at local, you can even get these at Walmart, but you can get these at local places that sell these sort of embroidery. It's like an embroidery thread, right? And what I did is I actually got one that was a brown color. So I have the brown embroidery thread just like that. I'm gonna go ahead and cut off a section. And I'd cut maybe about 6 inches to 8 inch section of it. I'm gonna go ahead and put that section in there and start tying it down. So we have our first tie, one in front, one behind. Okay. I'm gonna tie this in and go all the way to the back, just like so. Let's keep it nice and tight all the way to the back. And then we can go back up to the front. Tie it off, and we'll snip like the guy from that one fly tying YouTube channel goes, snip the excess free. I'll snip that excess free. All right, good. So I'm gonna actually put in some whip finishes. I'm gonna put in 2 whip finishes right away. 1, 2, and that's gonna hold everything in for a second while I snip away this brown thread. Okay, so that's all snipped off. Now you're gonna have to use some dexterity to actually tie this. You're gonna need some dexterity. So that's when we're gonna go ahead and start wrapping our embroidery thread. And I'm actually trying to flatten this out. So it's gonna actually be flattened out. You see how I'm kind of flattening it? I'm rolling it, or I'm putting it on going my direction, as opposed to away from me. I'm be rolling it my direction. Okay, now we're gonna go ahead and edge to the front, Put in one wrap there in the front. And this is the kind of worm that I'm using. It's a brown squirmy worm material. And you can actually get this all over the place. And you take one of these and you cut it in half, and that's just about the right amount that you can go ahead and put on this fly. And you can always adjust it later. So the way I do it, okay, this is where you have to get kind of, your dexterity comes into play. So you get both ends, right? And you're gonna wrap it kind of like this up that side until you get to the top. Yeah, see? This stuff can be tricky to work with sometimes. But you effectively try to get it about equal length. There you go. Okay, cool. And you're gonna go all the way to the front until you kind of get it on top. Okay, once you get it on top, then you kind of lock it in a little bit there, and then you start wrapping it back the other way. Okay, and try to flatten it out as much as you can. Right, this is what's going to allow this to stay in place without cutting the squirmy worm material. Just keep going back with it. Go all the way to the back. Whether you like it or not, this squirmy worm material will always be difficult to tie no matter what. Okay, so on this back piece, we're going to try our best to kind of keep it sort of on top. Cool, that looks good. Now, this last wrap is actually going to be the one where we're going to have to take some time and cover everything up. And just try to make sure that everything is well covered. And I usually try to flatten out the material best I can with this last wrap. And it's okay if some of that material actually squeezes out on the side. It's not that bad. Okay, and then once we get to the front, we'll tie one in the front for some separation there. Locks it in place. And this is another tricky, difficult part about this process. We're going to go ahead and get our line again. And with the same hand, we're going to hold the thread and start wrapping it. So wrap it once in front. Actually, watch me do this instead. So I'm going to wrap it here first. Then once there, and then we're going to try our best to wrap it behind again. There you go. Once you lock it in, you're good to go. And I'm going to wrap it one more time in the back before I snip it, hopefully. There you go. Cool. Okay, so we got everything all wrapped together now. Now we can go ahead and snip the excess free on both parts. So the tying thread as well as our embroidery thread. We can snip both and throw that in the trash. All right, looks good. So I'm gonna clean up this front a little bit. I'm gonna put one more wrap here in the front. Then I'm gonna put another wrap here around the back side. One more time. Make sure everything's nice and tight in there. I'm gonna take our whip finisher and whip finish it down. Just make sure that when you whip finish it, and all your wraps and everything they're not directly in contact with the squirmy worm material. You can you have some cushion when you're wrapping around it, but just try to make sure your wraps, like when you're using your line to wrap, that you're not too close to your squirmy worm material. So once I have those in, we're good to go. We can snip that off. Now, what I usually do, what I like to do is I like to add a little bit of UV resin. So I got some UV resin here. I'll go ahead and loosen up this vise. I'm actually going to add it to the bottom first. All right, and then we can take our bodkin. We can smooth everything out here on the back side. This is sort of just to lock all those threads in place. Kind of gives also sort of a segmented, like a different color for the segments on the body. Okay, so that looks good there. We'll put one more drop here on top. Spread that out. You don't need a whole lot, man. It's easy to go overboard with this stuff. On the sides here. Just enough to, you know for sure that everything is locked in place. And looking good. Sweet. That looks good. And it can be kind of raggedy, That's sort of what we're looking for when it comes to tying something like this. It doesn't have to be perfect for sure. And there it is, guys. There's your squirmy worm. It's a brown squirmy worm. And if you have any questions or anything like that, you're welcome to go ahead and send me a comment on how to tie something like this. But it's pretty self-explanatory. It takes a little bit more effort from your fingers to figure out exactly how this particular fly is tied. But eventually get to the point where you can do these really quickly. And what's nice is that even though you have sort of a lighter color here, right, in these legs or the body itself, then the segmented body, this portion in the middle, is really the hot spot that the fish kind of zero in on. So they might peck at this every once in a while, but they're really going to go for this section here because it has the UV and it's a little bit darker. So they tend to gravitate toward that. So I hope you like sort of this version of squirmy worm that I usually make, and I hope you guys get out there and try it out there in the waters, and I have a feeling you have good luck depending on what the fish are eating on, and they might be stock trout, but they may not be. I've caught this on brown trout in my area, wild brown trout, and also brook trout too. So give it a try if you get a chance, Have a good night.